Thanks so much for hanging out with us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside David Aragona. The Saturday race of the day is out at Gulfstream Park. It's going to be race number 10, the Sunshine Classic. We'll see Florida breds lining up going a mile and a 16th here. As David, we have Lure Him In, who actually was last year's winner of this race. Hasn't been in the best of form, though, since that. A horse like Secret Chat, pretty sharp right now. I think to the outside, you expect some money to come in for a horse like Big Martini, probably a couple of the major players in here.
Yeah, and it does appear that there is plenty of pace in this race, and we'll see how it plays out heading into that clubhouse turn, and they'll head into it very quickly, as you don't see too many 12-horse fields contesting the mile and a 16th distance at Gulfstream with that main track circumference only being a mile and an eighth. There's not much of a run before you get to that bend.
As we look at the pace projector here, most of this field is not really proven or at their best beyond a mile. A lot of horses who have done their best work shorter than this. So, not surprised to see a fast pace with many horses just projecting coming out of shorter races here. And I'm kind of looking for a horse who I think can sit a little bit off the pace in here. I thought this was a really difficult race to handicap, too, David.
There are so many ways to go in this race, and I think pace is going to be key because it's not only who has the speed to get forward, but who's able to get over from their post position because a lot of that speed is drawn towards the far outside. You see the numbers 10, 11, and 12 all shown in that first vanguard on the pace projector, and it's going to be interesting to see if they're able to overcome those post positions to use their speed. But it does kind of feel like something's going to have to give on the front end because, as you said, a lot of these horses don't have much experience going two turns on the dirt.
Let's start with Power Humor from the inside. This was a horse who's trying stakes company for the first time. Last three horses he lost to are all in this race, though. So we'll have to improve on all of the horses who have recently beat him, among others.
Yeah, I found it kind of tough to build a case for this horse. He is drawn well towards the inside, but he is one of those who wants to be forwardly placed. And like you said, he's been beaten by three rivals that he meets again here. When I watched those races, I didn't see much of a reason to prefer this horse over those.
The number two, Cozieres, has not really been consistent as of late, but I think you can find some races that would be really competitive in here with Cozieres. And the form overall, you can kind of talk yourself into some of the more recent poor performances and make excuses. It was just a small field last time out at Tampa. It was a field of four, and Cozieres had to kind of do the dirty work and try to put pressure on Big Martini, which is probably not exactly what he wants to do. A couple starts back, he's facing Subsanador and Il Miracolo, just a lot better than this group. Three starts back, Tappet Trice and Highland Falls, like much, much tougher runners than he'd be facing in here. And then you're getting back to a really good effort at Monmouth Park. A horse likes Gulfstream Park. He's one of those horses who I'm kind of curious what the price will be on him, David, because I could see him being a playable horse with a high ceiling. Just got to be the right price in here for me.
Yeah, as you pointed out, he's got those races that make him very competitive in this spot. If he can get back to that 94 buyer that he earned at Monmouth, he's going to be a handful in this race. I think a question, though, that he has to answer, as well as many others in this field, is can they run as well off Lasix? Because a lot of these horses are coming
Mhm.
off Lasix. And when you start to go back through his past performances, his last two victories and some of his best recent buyers have come when he was using Lasix, this being a stakes race. He won't be able to get that medication here.
Last year's winner is Lure Him In, who had a career best effort, but since that day, 0 for 7. Those races since then have all been against open company. So now is back in with Florida Reds, getting a little class relief in here. But in the most recent start was well behind a rival, Secret Chat, who we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if Lure Him In can get back to the performance he put forth to win the Sunshine Classic last year with a 97 buyer, he's going to smash this field, especially given his running style with this pace scenario. His recent form is the big question mark. Switching into a new barn for his last couple of races since coming back off a layoff, I think he's run okay against some decent fields. I liked his effort two back a little better, but last time out, he kind of was in behind horses at the quarter pole and just never really got into the clear. Not that he had traffic right to steady or anything like that. I just thought that Secret Chat, who won the race, got more of a clear run on the outside, whereas he was sort of discouraged in behind horses. So I'm not going to be surprised when he runs a little better here, getting a favorable pace setup.
Number four, Secret Chat. Kind of tough to knock his overall form. He's won two in a row, 2 for 2 since the barn change. And now he's going to make the third start of the form cycle, third start off the bench. We'll have to prove it at a mile and a 16th, but just watching the races visually, the source got to the outside, got up with a nice bid. Didn't seem like the additional distance should be a problem. He just feels like a really sharp horse right now who fits this field pretty well, David.
Yeah, and because of that, I imagine he's a horse that's going to attract a lot of support in this race,
Yeah.
especially, with that recent form showing. And he does have to get the mile and the 16th and answer that two-turn question. But you can look back at his Lexington, where he didn't run that badly behind some pretty good horses in Encino and the Wine Steward. I did think he was on the best part of the track that day because I think there was a slight rail bias at Keeneland on April 13th, and he rode the rail every step of the way. But still, he at least proved that that distance is not outside his scope. And he's coming in here in good form. He's very logical. It's just a matter of how short a price you want to take in what otherwise is a very competitive affair.
Awesome Train is in really nice form. Has won three of his last five. Career best form right now, you'd probably say, and was a third behind Loco Abario. Big Martini was also in that Florida Bred Stakes race on October the 19th. How do you think he fits off the recent form?
Yeah, we'll take a look at his most recent effort when he put forth that good performance to pair up the 85 buyers, beating a Florida bred allowance field. I'm always a little bit untrustworthy at this level of horses that kind of rose out of $8,000 condition claiming races, which he was competing in just 5 starts ago. So he's come a long way recently, but he's stepping up in class once again. And he's another one who doesn't really have the proven form around 2 turns. So he's got to answer that question as well.
One sharp cookie, kind of another horse who's been doing his best work, going a little bit shorter. Back-to-back wins on off tracks in July, September of last year, and then tailed off when stepping up and facing open company and facing tougher stakes groups. So we haven't seen this guy since the middle of October, but all three wins have been right here at Gulfstream Park, although the two of them have been on the off track. How do you think he fits?
I mean, he's one of the most talented horses in this race. When you're looking at speed figures and some of the company that he's kept, he looks like his credentials are solid from a class standpoint. Distance just feels like it's a major question with this horse because, I mean, he was having trouble getting a mile against weaker competition earlier in his career. He really blossomed as a sprinter. And I feel like sometimes these horses just wind up in these races because they're eligible for them, him being a Florida bred. But I'm skeptical that the mile and the 16th is really the best trip for him.
Jack Diesel has probably been facing some of the better company in the field. And so he really fits on class. Another one who the distance will have to be the question. He's been like a late running sprinter, kind of one turn miler for the most part. But then you start to dive in. He has a little bit of positional speed. He actually defeated Big Martini at the end of 2023 and has just been facing tougher since. And if you toss the races where he had really poor starts, the form overall is pretty consistent. He generally shows up with a good effort.
Yeah, I completely agree on the class question. I mean, he's run plenty of races at a mile against some really tough open company competition that'll make him tough in this race. I mean, you go all the way back to his Gulfstream Park mile in 2024, where he was fourth behind the likes of Steel Sunshine and Tumbarumba, horses that would be odds on in a race like this. And you go all the way back to his 3-year-old season. He did win around 2 turns once at Tampa Bay Downs against Allowance Company, coming from off the pace that day. And then his only other 2 turn races were the Risen Star and the Florida Derby. What chance did he have in those spots? So I actually think this horse might actually be cut out to go the 2 turns. And I was looking up some stats for his trainer, David Fox, since this horse is coming in off a layoff, off 120 to 240 day layoffs. Fox is 11 for 49, 22% with a $3.16 ROI.
Well, we've said this about a lot of horses so far in this field, but Belts and Brooks is another one who has to prove it at this level. Oh, for the last four, now stepping up, and a couple of those horses who he's been running behind are in here, like Awesome Train and Secret Chat, even to the outside, Lightning Tone. So we'll need to reverse the form on a couple of these common rivals, David.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about him as I did the rail horse in this race. He's just been beaten by some of these before and has been making up minor awards against some weaker competition. I have questions about the 2 turns with him. It just feels like the questions pile up enough that it's a little tough to build a strong case for him.
Let's move to the number 9, Lightning Tones. Another horse who's not in the best of win form right now, 0 for the last 9, but the last couple races are not bad. Was a pretty close up third last time out, and we'll start to string a few races together here, David, after a couple gaps. So where do you think Lightning Tones fits with this group?
Yeah, I mean, it's never a surprise when a horse with this running style struggles to get to the winner's circle, especially being based at Gulfstream, because he just doesn't have any early speed. He's a deep closer, and that can be a tough style over that course at Gulfstream. But maybe this is the right kind of spot for a deep closer because there's so much speed in this race. He's going to drop towards the back of the pack. You know he'll be finishing at the end. And he was a horse that I always kind of viewed as more of a closing sprinter, but they tried the mile in the 16th around 2 turns last time. He was facing a pretty good open company field that day, and he gave them all that they could handle. I mean, running that field to a half length decision at the end at 15-1, I think that performance makes him fit here, and he could be a price again.
The winner that day has won 3 in a row. We move now to Super Watson, 0 for the last 12. It's going to move into the Safety Joseph Jr. barn, though, for the first time. And we know very good first start off the claim, but first time on the dirt for this horse who just hasn't been in the best overall form. What do you think about Super Watson in this spot?
Yeah, seems like a strange horse to show up in this spot, being based at Woodbine on the synthetic surface for almost his entire career. But maybe Saffy Joseph got the idea to claim this horse when he claimed his half brother, Comedy Town, for $25,000 from a career of synthetic and turf racing. And then Comedy Town went on to win 3 races in a row, including a stakes for Saffy Joseph. We'll see if it's the same thing for Super Watson, but I've got some concerns about this guy handling the dirt for the first time.
Holiday Pay had a bad start last time out. Was actually favored in that non-2 against Secret Chat. Was last early, was 3 wide, kind of loomed up to third before tiring. So I can make an excuse for that last effort, but his overall form just strikes me as another horse who I don't know if he wants to go this far, and I really need to see it proven going this far.
And now we're getting out to post 11 in a mile and a 16th race at Gulfstream. And you really need to be a superior horse to get the job done from that post, especially if you plan to be somewhat forwardly placed. And I just don't see that edge and ability over the field for Holiday Pay for him to overcome that obstacle.
On the outside, Big Martini won a small field last time out. It was just a field of 4 over at Tampa, but did what he was supposed to, got to the lead, got the job done. So a horse who is really honest, David, kind of always shows up and always fires. He's just never been this far. We've said this about a lot of horses. He's never successfully been this far. Can he continue and show that speed and stretch it out a little bit farther here?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, he's got races that'll make him really tough in here. I mean, you go back to the middle of last year, he ran that 95 buyer running Cape Trafalgar to a neck decision. That's a really nice Saffy Joseph horse, a high level allowance competitor. And Big Martini, his buyers have dropped off a little bit since then, but he continues to perform well in his races, as we saw last time. But once again, he's a horse that wants to be forward with plenty of early speed. Breaking from post 12, if this field holds together, that's nearly impossible to pull off at Gulfstream Park. So I would need a price on a horse like this.
I thought this was a really challenging race, so I'm going to look for a little bit of value in here when I make my final decisions. David, start with you. How did you end up?
I'm not surprised that we have very different numbers showing up here because it's that kind of race. You can go in
Yep.
so many different directions. I kind of wanted to focus on a couple of the closers and lure him in, as well as the number 9 Lightning Tones. But I kept coming back to the number 7 Shaq Diesel, who I just think has faced some better competition through a bunch of his races. And as I dug into his form from early in his career, I think there was some intent to stretch him out at one point. And maybe the mile and the 16th is not going to be as big of a hurdle for him as it'll prove to be for some others.
Cozieres has not been the most consistent, but a horse with a very high ceiling. Let's see if we can get back to one of those better efforts for him. 2-4, 12-9 for me, 7-3, 9-4 for David. We wish you the best of luck on Saturday at Gulfstream Park.